Hey guys, Nick again from Grayscale Gorilla. I am the Gorilla, and today I have these giant headphones on because we're going to play around with some sound today in Cinema 4D. We're going to use the sound effector. Somebody dropped a message in the comments at the last tutorial about how to control these hair things, these kind of particle-y kind of things using the sound effector. So I came into the office today and I said, that is a good question. I haven't really played around with it too much, so I started learning what it does and made a little animation for it, and I want to show you guys how I built that and kind of what the sound effector does and how to configure it. So let's head on in and let's do this. So here we are. Let's get a basic sound effector kind of thing going just so we could see what it does. Let's grab a cube and scale it down, maybe 50 by 50 by 50. That'll be a good start. And we're going to drop this in a cloner object. And the cloner object, instead of going up, we want it to go sideways. So grab your cloner. Let's make a little room here. And instead of going in the Y direction, we want to go in the X direction. So let's zero out Y. And let's turn up X until our cubes are just a little bit far apart. And turn it up, so we have some more clones, 15, 20 clones, just so we can see what's going on. So here are... here's our cloner all set up, and what we need to do is add the sound effector. So if we go up to MoGraph and we go to Effector, we could add the sound effector, and by default, it's going to do nothing. You hit play, nothing's going on, and of course, we need to tell the sound effector what to affect. So you need to grab either a QuickTime with audio in it, or a WAV file, or an MP3, I think works. Actually, MP3s might not work. I'm not exactly sure, but make sure you grab a file that it recognizes. So in this case, I grabbed what I think might be an MP3. So let's find that out. It's by this artist Cubisto. I'm sure I'm screwing up his name, but it's this track right here. It's got a lot of kind of stops and starts. It's got a lot of high frequency and low frequency stuff, and it really shows off kind of what is going on. And let me see what type of file this is. This is an M4A file, which I think is a type of QuickTime file. So those are supported, obviously. So we're going to open it up. And now, when we hit play, we have audio. And the other thing we need to do is extend our timeline, because right now we're only getting the first kind of 90 frames here. And so let's go ahead and extend it. Let's go to 500 frames or something like that, so we get a little bit more of the song. And we're going to extend our timeline out so it keeps going. So the other thing, this track in particular has kind of a soft opening. It's not really that loud for too long. It actually gets going right around frame 500. And whatever thing you pick too, you may want to find the louder part of the signal to start to be familiar of what it is if it has a slow intro. So in this case, I'm just going to go, let's start at frame 500 and go to 1000. Let's see here. There we go. 1000, not 100. And let's hit play. And there you go. So hopefully in the tutorial, I could leave the audio going and just have it really low in the background, so it's not bugging you guys too bad. But you need to be able to see what the audio is doing. So in this case, it looks like the volume of the audio is affecting all the clones together, and it's not affecting them very much. You can see they're just kind of moving around there. So let's go into our sound effector and start to play around with some of these settings and see what they do. So I'm going to leave the track running. Again, hopefully it's low enough volume. And we're going to look at, first of all, the parameter. So the parameter by default is this position. So you could, of course, make it go higher. So now you can see it's moving up really high. But in this case, we don't want position. We want scale. And we only want Y scale. I'm going to make kind of like an equalizer kind of thing. If you're an old man like me, we had these graphic equalizers on all of our radios, and that's kind of what we're going to start with. And we're going to move into the sphere thing a little bit later, but using just kind of basic shapes are a good way to see what the sound effector does before we try to go in and make something else with it. So let's go ahead and turn up the scale on the Y-axis up pretty high, and again, let's go back to our effector tab, and you want to check one more thing. Now, right now, what it's doing is it's affecting all the clones the same, and that is because of this, apply mode all, okay? And this essentially looks at the waveform, and, there's not a good way to know exactly how it's calculating all this stuff, and I know there is documentation. If we right-click and we go into Show Help, it'll show us, what the frequency graph is and what these things are, but in the end of it, we kind of have to make some adjustments and see what it does to affect our shapes before we could really trust it. right? There's no kind of numbers that are being spit out here. It's just kind of driving our shape. So if the first thing we could do to kind of make it a little easier to see is, instead of all, which is just going to drive this all at the same time, if we go to step, we're going to see this frequency graph displayed in our viewport now. So now when we hit play, the low frequency stuff is going to make these squares move higher and lower, and the high frequency stuff is going to make these move higher and lower. And just so we're clear, you guys probably know this, but this down here represents the bass and the lower frequency of the audio, and this up here represents the higher frequency, the hi-hats and the snares, and the snares are more in the middle, but the hi-hats and the cymbals and the psh sounds. So if we had a sound for all this, it would go like that. All right, so that is what is being represented by these clones, right? So the kick drum goes off, you get more active down here, and the hi-hat goes off, you get more active up here. So let's watch that for a second. You can see it's really driven by the volume breaks too. When it stops volume, it gets kind of quiet and all this stuff. And that's why this track is really nice. It has a lot of ups and downs. Okay, so where do we go from here? Well, now we know we can drive that by hitting play and seeing what's going on. Now, we can compress it, which it looks like compressing it is making the louder stuff louder and the quieter stuff quieter, which to me, I'm not exactly sure if that's a traditional type of compression. What it looks like to me it's doing is really kind of basically turning everything up. And in fact, if we crank everything, you're going to see we're basically down to a 1 or 0 level. So when it's really quiet, it basically goes to 0, and when it's really loud, it goes all the way up. This is almost turns it into like a binary system where if it's on, it's on, and if it's off, it's off. You can see we don't get any of that movement anymore the higher we compress that signal. So it's almost like a visual compression, like a photo. If you compress a photo high enough, it's just going to turn into pure black and pure white, right? And that's what it's doing here. And you can see that in the frequency graph. If it's low, you know, we kind of have this nice waveform, and the more we compress it, the louder stuff gets, and the quieter stuff gets, until it's just pretty much, you know, 0 here. So the compression is a good way to kind of add a little bit more dynamics into the system. That's one way to look at it. And the thing above this is the lower cutoff, and this is a little bit different. This actually cuts off anything quieter than a certain level. So you can see if we crank this all the way up, we barely get any movement at all. And this is because this is kind of like a threshold. It says at any one of these frequencies, if it doesn't pass this certain loudness, don't even bother. Don't move it up at all. And wait until it gets past a certain level of loudness, and then crank up, and then allow it to be affected, right? So if we go to about halfway, you can see this is what's going on. We're really not getting a lot of data until it reaches a certain volume, and then it pops into place really quickly. So it's a really snappy movement. But both of these actually kind of work against us in this equalizer kind of model kind of way. In fact, I really wish there was another slider that allowed us to kind of do this lower cutoff. But something similar to if you've ever played around with Sound Keys, which is a Trapcode plugin for After Effects. Really cool plugin. It allows you to dial in a lot more carefully what parts of the audio you want to affect. And, you know, there is a little bit of that down here with the frequency and bandwidth, but it's just not as intuitive, and it's not as smooth. You don't have the control over the fall off and all that nice stuff that you do with Sound Keys. In fact, there's a tutorial from a while back, I think it was at NAB, recorded with Mike the Monkey was doing that, and he had a really great audio example of how he used audio to animate a character. And in fact, he did all of his audio stuff inside of After Effects and using Sound Keys, and then he exported it into Cinema for exactly that reason, because the sound effector didn't give him that control that he needed. So it is a little bit limited, this sound effector, and we're going to look into ways to kind of work around it a bit, but I just wanted to kind of make that difference clear. So, all right, so what can we do? So let's turn both of these down and get a more kind of a natural look here. And let's look at some of the other settings that we may or may not use for the final animation, but I wanted to show you. The filter shape basically allows you to equalize this graph. So in this case, the bass is really heavy and it kind of trickles down, and the really high frequencies aren't really there. So in this case, it's really weighted very heavily to the left. And you can see this represented in the graph. So if you want to even these things out, one thing you could do is in your filter shape, you can draw a graph. So we have our new graph here. We could basically draw a little thing here from left to right. And now the right side of this graph will be higher than the left side. And you can see it's basically compressing, or not compressing in this sense, but it's turning the volume down where the curve is low and keeping the volume normal where the curve is high. And you can go above and below, I think, as well, especially using these little things here. We definitely don't want it to be that quiet, but we just want to equalize it out. So this might be a good way to turn down the bass a little bit, not audibly, but just the way that it's being driven. So now it's a little bit more even, you can see across, and we're actually going to use this in the final as well. So what's after that? So below that we have frequency color, and this is a way that you can color your objects based on, I think, the loudness of this going up and down. So let's pick a color here. Let's pick like red for the bottom and pink for the top or something like that. And you can see it does nothing by default, and that's because we're missing one little thing here. We have to go into the parameter, which is where we tell it, the scale and the position and all. This is where we tell the sound effector what it's supposed to do to our cloner. Okay, and what we can do in here is there's a color mode, right? So in color mode, we could say turn color mode on. And now we're getting somewhere. You can see now we have, let's see, I never know if alpha strength on or off is better. It looks like off is better. So in this case, now it's actually being mapped according to this color. So we have red down here, we have pink up here. Now it's a little washed out. That's partly because of the specular channel. So let's just go on the side and try to remove some of that. So there it is, red to pink, all the way up the frequency. And you can make this a rainbow, you can make this whatever you want. So this is how you get the colors to change based on the audio, right? And when it's off, it goes to black. So that is that. Now, next thing here is the filter, is being able to notch in and only have the sound effector look at certain frequencies of the audio clip. And this is where it can get really powerful. You can get, down into the lower registers, like, so 440 is kind of that middle A guitar string, kind of like if you have a guitar, go play that second string on it, and I think that might be middle A. It might be one octave lower than a middle A, but that's kind of roughly where it is. Middle A is kind of this, I might be screwing that whole thing up. 440 seems a little bit low. Might be 44,000, but that seems high. I gotta go back to my audio class. I'm sure one of you smart people will correct me on this one, but essentially, if you get these lower numbers, you're going to be in the bass. So, somewhere around about, 10 to 400, 200 hertz is going to be bass. And then you have mid-range from there up into the thousands. Like human voices is around 3,000. And you can look these up if you want to know the frequency of different instruments and stuff like that. You can go find that online. Somewhere in the thousands you're going to get, or the mid-thousands, you're going to get voices. And then above that, into the 10,000s, you're going to get hi-hats and cymbals and splashy sounds and S sounds and stuff like that. So figure out what part of the audio clip you're trying to move with, and that will kind of help you do this. So a couple things about that idea. Of course, in this song, we don't have any vocals really. It's all just kind of bass and drums and stuff like that. But if you have a vocal track and you're trying to make things move based on when people talk, this will become very important to dial that in, and then it will exclude the stuff you don't want, right? So let's talk about what it does and then what we could use it for. So the frequency we can move up and down, and you can see it's actually being drawn into this frequency graph. It shows you what kind of part of the frequency it is. So if you see a really sharp piece on your graph up here that you want to capture, you can actually move this up and down visually and kind of grab it. The number below that is your bandwidth, and this is how wide or how fat that channel is. So look at it this way. Instead of your clones moving based on the entire frequency of this graph, right? Now it's only going to move based on what's in this blue area. So again, if you want to highlight the kick drum and only have things go boom, boom, boom whenever the kick drum goes off, this is how you would do it. And then you can make another sound effector and then isolate the snare. So then these clones could go boom, boom, and then these clones can go and then you can go boom, 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 whatever, right? So that's what these two can do, is help you isolate what that is. In this case, we're not going to use it. We actually like the graph, or I do, for this case. We don't have to. I certainly do. Like it from low to high in that frequency. Okay, but that's what it does. Right below that, you can actually see you can play the audio if you like, and you can scrub, turn on and off the scrub sound. If you leave it on when you scrub, it's going to play the song. And if you want that off, you could do that, and then it's not going to bug you when you move around. So that is the sound effector. A couple more things up here. And again, anything I missed, if you right-click and go to Show Help, boom, you got this whole thing. It's going to show you what all this stuff does. And frankly, this is how I learned it this morning. Some of these things I didn't know what they did, and I kind of went in here and started to learn about some of this. So, you know, if I don't go over all of it, there you go. Here's your magic button. You have your normal min and max stuff, and I think we're ready. I think we're ready to move forward here, start to make something with all this knowledge now. So we have our track, we have our stuff bouncing around, and let me show you how quickly we got from here, you know, basically me learning how all this stuff works to making a cool little animation with some spheres, of course. So let's swap our cubes. Let's just delete our cubes and give them some spheres instead. And in this case, we don't want them to move in just the Y direction. We want them to move and scale in all directions. So we can go to our sound effector and go to the parameter and say uniform scale, and then turn that dude up. Okay, cool. So now we have some spheres that are kind of bouncing around. We can also shrink these spheres down. Let's go to frame 0, which in this case is 500, but you get the idea. Let's shrink our spheres down, just so they're little tiny dudes normally, and then they really grow up large. So let's go to that sound effector and really crank it up, something like 10 or maybe even higher. Okay. So there we go. So now we're getting somewhere. Let me really crank this and talk about the next thing we're going to add before we start adding all the dynamics and stuff like that. The next thing in the list, or the next thing I noticed, was there's no way to get that fade down that the trap code sound keys has. And what I mean by that is there's a setting in there that allows you to basically not allow what it's driving to just fall to 0 instantly. And you can see that's what's happening here. It's kind of going from full on to full off, and that's not always what you want. Sometimes, in fact, those old 80s equalizers that I grew up with had this setting. It was something called like delay or hold or something like that. So instead of the equalizer jumping really fast, it would actually peak, and it would show its peaks. And then if it got quiet, it would just kind of fall down naturally. And it gives you a better visualization of where those peaks are. Instead of disappearing so quickly, those peaks would peak, right? And then they would hold their level and just kind of fall down to 0 instead of falling to 0 instantly like we have here. So that's what we have. We have these kind of going, you know, blink, 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 blink. And one way to get around that is to use the delay effector. So let's grab our cloner. You always want to make sure whatever you're applying this to is selected. You want to go up to MoGraph and add a delay effector. Now, you may have seen me use the delay effector. Let me find it. There it is. You may have seen me use the delay effector for spring, which is cool. And spring is usually how I use it. But in this case, blend is what we want. Blend does two things. It doesn't let it jump up very quickly, and it also doesn't let it jump down very quickly. So it wants to kind of stay where it is. And you can see the higher we move this, ignore the color for now because it doesn't work on color, unfortunately. I wish in this parameter that the delay effector had a little checkbox for color as well. Wouldn't it be cool if these not only stayed large longer, but also faded down into like a deep red and a deep pink or purple instead of just blinking to black, right? Unfortunately, I couldn't find a way to do that. But the delay effector helped with kind of the size and scale of this. So I ended up somewhere around 60-70%. You can see what it's doing now as it just kind of fades off, and it's not as drastic. If I turn off the delay effector, you can see it's really blinky. See that? It's kind of ones and zeros, and it really rumbles around. It moves a lot. This delay effector just kind of smooths it out. And this ends up working really nice, especially when we add the dynamics. Okay, So that is that. So let's get our main kind of cloner dudes ready to go. In this case, let's go back to frame 0 where it's nice and quiet and dial it in. Okay, so in our cloner, what we can do is add a ton more clones and then shrink them all way up close to each other. And now what we have are a lot more kind of clones to work with, but of course they're all touching. So let's start adding those dynamics so they kind of bounce around and do all that fun stuff. So let's go to our tags, make sure your sphere is selected. Go to tags, go to simulation tags, add a rigid body, and hit play and watch them explode. What we need to tell them to do instead of exploding is to go to the force tab and tell them to follow position. And this kind of tells them to stay where they are. And you've probably seen this being used on a lot of my tutorials, and it's nice because it keeps them where they exist, but they still are dynamic. So now you can see we get that cool little effect where they grow, but they all are trying to fight and stay where they were, right? So try something small, something like 3 or 5 here. And now you can see we have our kind of desired effect. Now, this is with the delay effector as well. So now you can start dialing in your delay effector and saying, okay, what if it's all the way down? It's really kind of itchy and blinky. And what if we turn it way up? Well, now it's really too solid, so let's turn it down. And it's all about getting that right amount of pulsing here. So now you can see the bass is making these move, and the high frequencies are making these move. This is exactly what we wanted, and it's fantastic. Lovely. Okay, so now what you can do is, in my case, what I ended up doing is duplicating the sound effector. And before you move on, one thing you might want to do is visualize and equalize your sound. So if you have too many of them moving down in the bass, you may want to do something like this with this filter shape and kind of tone down the bass. And if you want your mid-range to go up, you can make a little notch here and move that up, right? So it's all up to you on how you want this stuff to move. Obviously, a lot of settings here we could play with. But this looks pretty close to where we were. So let's stop with this sound effector and go to into the next one. So essentially what I did was duplicate the sound effector, and I opened up my cloner and I went to my effectors and I added it. Now I put it before the delay effector, and I'm pretty sure this is the order you should put it in, and you want the sound effectors to kind of happen, but you want the delay effector last. And I think that's because it will kind of equalize both of these at the same time. So if we go into our sound effector now and basically give it the same exact settings, but now we give it a white channel instead of a pink to blue or whatever this is. If we give it a white channel, now it's going to really make the scaling crazy. The other thing it's going to do is, so let's tone down the scaling. Let's go to parameter and just turn this to 1 for now. Okay. The other thing you could do with this is now in your parameters, in your color modes, you could turn this instead of to default to add. And when you turn this to add, and you start to play around with some of these colors, let me make sure I got this the right setup here. You start to get more of these, you get to start to get more variation in your colors. So instead of just having red to pink, you're going to have kind of 2 sound effectors working with each other to then add color on top of the other ones. So let's go back to our original, and you can see default is set to here. You could turn this to add as well and really start to get more kind of pastel colors and get to the kind of color shading you want. So let me see in this case what the best scenario is as far as colors are. So let's try default in the base, normal ones, and then let's try add here and turn off alpha. And I think what we really want to do is not make it 100%. So let's go into strength and just tone it down. That's really what we're going for. So now it's going to get brighter the louder it gets based on this. So there'll be duller blue and red, and then as they get louder, it'll be brighter blue and red. So now we're adding variation using layered sound effectors that are going on top of each other and adding different variations to it. So that is those two. We have pretty much everything we need at this point. I added 2 other things, so let me tone this down just so it's not so jumpy. Maybe we'll just scale out. It's not too bad. Cool. Okay. I'm sure you guys are sick of this song already, but that's all right. let's add our lighting, and then let's add that last variation, which is that kind of dust that's floating around. In fact, let's add the dust now. I think that's kind of really fun to a fun effect. I was looking at this effect and I was like, this is really cool, and I have all these spheres jumping around, but what if it was colliding with all this other stuff? So I took the cloner and I copied it and I pasted it, and I basically made an identical clone of another set of spheres with the same kind of dynamic settings on it. And then I went into its effectors and I said, I don't want them to be affected by sound, and I don't want them to be affected by anything really. I just want them to be and exist and not be a part of the audio system, but to be a part of the dynamics system. So what we have now are all these kind of gray spheres that kind of have nothing to do. They all hang out and they stay small, but they're being affected by all these other objects that are bouncing around, see? And I thought, okay, that was cool, but what if they had a lot looser rules? What if they could really float around? So then I grabbed their force and their follow position and did something really, really low. So now, when they get hit, they kind of bounce around. So they're always trying to be back to where they were, but for the most part, they're being just kind of thrown around by all these spheres. The other thing I ended up doing was moving them up, and that's because they have such a low follow position, they want to fall to the ground. Now, the other thing I could do, maybe what I should have done, is go into their force list and zero out the gravity on only this sphere, on only this cloner set. So now this set has no gravity. It's just kind of flying around. That's probably what I should have done. Instead, what I did was I grabbed them and I just moved them up. So they're always fighting to be a little bit higher than they should. The other thing I did was make them a lot smaller. So let's start over. There they are. They're all falling down. And as our system starts going, you're going to start to see them jump and be fun little particles. Now, I think I did one other thing on this system, and that's make them varied sizes. So I went and grabbed, let me turn off the audio. I went and grabbed an effector, random effector, and I went into the parameters of the random effector and turned off position, turned on scale, turned on uniform scale, and just kind of scaled these all a little bit differently. So now you can see we have variations. That's a little bit too much, maybe 2. And then I shrank the sphere way down. So now we have big particles, little particles, and this just gave it more of like a dust kind of a feel instead of these larger particles. So especially once they started getting going. I want to say I added way more of them too. I think we had over 300 of these little dust particles. So let's go into our cloner. Let's go into object and crank this dude up. We could also use render instances, which is going to make this calculate a lot faster. And the other thing is we can shrink down our object a little bit closer so they're about the same width as what we needed before. So let's try 2.5, looks about where we have it. Or we could just grab this dude and just kind of roughly eyeball it. But if you do that, you want to grab it from one of these upper and lower or top or front views, so you're not moving it too crazy. All right, let's head back in, see where we are. We have our dust falling down.
Hello.
Whoops. There we go. So we have our dust falling down. We have our balloons kind of popping and moving around and being loud and making dust fly around. There it goes. Cool. That's exactly what we want. So let's pick a frame here and start to design the look and the lighting and all the rest of this stuff. So we haven't textured anything really other than the basic stuff. And adding reflections to these particles can be tricky because we're using not a texture to texture them, but a sound effector. And so there's a little bit of a workaround to do this. So let's do that first. If you want to make these glossy, these spheres, let me show you the way I always try to do it, and I mess it up. You add a new material, and you drag it to your cloner, and you say, well, crap, now what? These clones were the color I wanted them. I'm just trying to add maybe some transparency or trying to add some luminance, or in this case, we're trying to add reflection. Why, can I just blend this together? And you go to mix textures, and you're like, well, that's not working. Mixed textures usually works when you have 2 textures. You want to blend them together. What's the secret here? And the secret is to go into your color channel and go grab in your MoGraph channel here, you want to grab your color shader. And now color shader is going to look into that system of clones and pull out the color shader into this material. And it doesn't show up here because it's different for every object, right? But if you're using the, this is also popular with the shader effector, obviously. Any one of these things where you're using color in one of the effectors, this is the way you pull it out, right? So now the color is actually driven by the color shader. You can actually do this with the luminance as well. If you want the luminance to be driven by the color shader, you can come in and do the exact same thing and say color shader, and now when we hit render, it's a luminant material with that texture, not just the color. So we don't need it in this case, but that's how you start to build your texture. So now we have a color. Of course, we need reflection. We need some Fresnel, and we're going to tone it down so we just get a little bit of reflection, and we're starting to get somewhere. All right. We're also going to kill our specular. You know what? I think we're going to add a normal light in here. And I'm not a specular hater like I used to be. So let's leave it up for now, and maybe we'll turn it off in a second. I'm going to give you a break, specular. Don't disappoint me. Let's grab a new material and add it to our dust sphere. This is this system here, and you can name it. If you have a lot of time on your hands, you can say dust. And you can click on this and say main color. There you go. Everyone's happy now. And then you hit render, and you got your dust, you got your particles. Now we got to light this dude. In my case, I used two lights. I used a, we went to the light kit, and the softbox, overhead softbox was the first one I grabbed. So the overhead softbox is just going to come in kind of a little off center just because of the way we built that system. But if we move it and grab it and shift it over and zoom in here, we're going to go kind of a long way just by doing that. So now, one light, that looks pretty good right there. And actually, depending on the song you picked, that might be all you need. Especially if it's some spooky, dark, kind of heavier song or something like that. That's pretty stark kind of look, you know, really one light source in space, basically. Add a little background to that, and you may be onto something. In my case, I wanted to fill in a little bit of this detail. I didn't want it to fall off to black so much. So I ended up using the linear skylight, and I added that, and I hit render, and that filled in the rest of it. You can see it just kind of gave everything a nice overall light. It also started to add some shadowing here in the middle. That is also part of the overhead softbox, but just had a nice kind of feeling to it. And but I didn't want to see it in the background. I wanted to make my own background. So I went into the linear skylight. I went into its controls, and I went to the bottom, and I said sky seen by camera. Turn that dude off. And now it's just on black. Perfect. So now let's build our own backdrop. You could use a gradient on a background. I, of course, am a sucker for my own tools. So I'm going to go use the seamless floor. I'm going to turn off the floor. We don't need a floor, but we do need the background. If we do a default render, you're going to see it's on white. And if we grab our gradient and make something a little darker, in my case, it was a darkish blue center and a black around the edge. And that's where we ended up. So that's pretty close to where we ended. We have our little clone. We have our little dust flying around. We have our big stuff there. And I think the linear skylight's a little bit bright. So let's just tone that down, maybe halfway. There we go. So it's still very top heavy. You get this nice reflection. And the last thing, as far as lighting is concerned, is in the overhead softbox, instead of using a square gobo, I used a circle. And what that did was give me circular reflections instead of rectangular on the top. I thought this was a nice offset for the spheres, you know, instead of having those sharp edges. Now we have these nice little circles on top of all the reflections. And that is where it was rendered. So from here, I figured out the length of the song. What I really did was I kind of made the timeline really, really long, like 4,000 here. And then I went and tried to find the end of the song. So is it here? It's a little further. Right there. Okay, so I found the end of the song. I gave it a little bit of time to kind of settle, and I said, okay, 3,400 is about right. So I went to our timeline. I said 3,400, and now we have our entire song animated, ready to go. All driven by audio, no keyframes, nothing to animate or worry about. You just drop a song in and you're all set. In fact, if you were to drop a new song in, you get an entirely different animation based on, again, based on the audio. That's what this is all made for. So this is where I ended up rendering. I went into my render settings. I did a 1280 by 720 and saved it out as TIFFs, and I pulled it into After Effects. So that let me make sure, because I always forget at least one thing after I go into After Effects and look at it, but I guess I just have to bite the bullet and go in here and make sure we're on the same page. So let me shrink this down so you guys can see it, and let me make sure After Effects fits in the window here so you can see everything. And let me break down the After Effects project, just because of the compositing does make a big difference. So let's, first of all, this is the final kind of look. We have our particles being flown around. We have our dust kind of flying. We have our black pieces. Everything's looking good, right? So let me show you the compositing breakdown. And let's start with the audio that was added in After Effects. Because we started at frame 0 and rendered it out, I knew I could bring in the audio in After Effects and just start on frame 0, would be all set. Above that, here's our base render. So there's a nice little A-B for the compositing. This is out of Cinema, actually without the motion blur. That's what came out of Cinema, and with the motion blur and with the compositing, that's it. So it's a subtle look, but I always have to composite it. So let's talk about the motion blur really quickly. The motion blur is from Real Smart Motion Blur. It basically looks at the motion of your objects and tries to guess where the motion blur is. This is much faster than rendering out a motion blur pass in 3D. Not as accurate, of course, if you need something really accurate, like helicopter blades or, some really smooth kind of silky animation thing. You may have to bite the bullet and render full motion blur out of 3D. In this case, Real Smart does a great job most of the time, and you could dial it up and down and get more or less motion blur. And a little bit goes a long way with motion blur, but it's always a part of my compositing for the most part, because motion blur exists in anything that's filmed, unless it's one of those action movies where they crank up the shutter speed. Most things that have motion blur, and it looks more natural. So that is Real Smart. So above that, we have, so let's go piece by piece. Here's that with Real Smart. The next is just a little bit of a highlight above. I figured we'd add almost like a little lens flare because that's where the light's coming from. So I added a little bit of light up there. The next one's a little bit of a color over here to break it up, and there's more color over here as well. So these three are just single solids in After Effects with a soft mask around them. If I grabbed one, you could see there's the mask for that one, and they're just feathered masks for all three of those. 1, 2, 3. All right, up next, we have a directional blur. Directional blur is really subtle, really low, and it's actually being driven by, look, check this out, sound keys. We talked about them earlier. This is that Trapcode plugin. If you've seen Shine, Particular, some of his other plugins, this is made by the same dude, same team. I probably should say dude for this one. This is one of the older ones. And Sound Keys is that one that's in here. In fact, if we turn it on, you can see it has this cool little interface that shows you your histogram here and how loud all the different variations are, and you could set up your ranges like we talked about earlier a lot more specifically and say, okay, what part of the audio system or what part of the frequencies do you want to look at? And it also has that nice little fall off scenario where it actually falls off a little bit more realistically or visually realistically. So check out Sound Keys if you use After Effects for a lot of stuff. Quick note, crap, I'm gonna blank on it. I gotta figure out what that is. What's that? Hey guys, what's that crime drama with the one everyone tells you to watch all the time?
Criminal Minds.
Wire. Thank you. Yeah, that's that show that everyone tells you to watch all the time. So I watched it, and it has when they are wiretapping the dudes in the housing projects, they have like a little visualized thing in the basement where where they're I'm going to screw up every one of these things. I can't even remember one of their names, but it's a good first season. You know, I'll be that guy. You should watch it. Okay, so when they're showing the audio from the phones, when they're listening in, the way they did the visualize is with sound keys. They didn't even do anything. They just added sound keys and they put in the sound file and they recorded sound keys. Can you believe that? I thought that was great. And they need a royalty for that, I think. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. I saw that literally this interface was what was on their computer. Anyway, so that's sound keys, and sound keys is driving the amount of blur. So let's turn that off. Sound keys is driving the amount of blur in this directional blur. So if we open up our directional blur, we actually see some code here that is looking at sound keys to say how long the blur is, the blur length, and it's also looking at the code to see how high the opacity is. Now, in this case, it's a really subtle effect. It's something I toned way down because it was a little bit too obvious when it was really pumping loud. But I kept it in there just as an example to show you not only can you use Cinema's, sound effector stuff, but After Effects using sound keys, you could do some of this stuff as well. So pretty cool. And it's using the same song. So you could really tie some really cool animation together. So that is our directional blur. Really subtle effect again. And above that, we have our vignette. So above this, we have just a really subtle vignette. Let me tone this down. And here we go. So we have our vignette, dark, bright. And you can see it's just a soft mask around that. Above that, we have our, that's our vignette. Above that, we have our curves. So our curves adjustment basically does some contrast here. You can see a nice little S shape here. We have a blue lift, just to pull up some of that blue. Nothing too crazy, but just a little bit. And then we have our levels, which pulls our blacks back up. We kind of crushed our levels a little bit. So we're just kind of pulling those up to make sure they're not too crushed there. Up next, we have some grain. Not a lot, just 7% with the misfire. And this will kind of do a couple things. It'll fix some of the gradient issues. And again, grain is one of those nice compositing tricks too, just because it tends to make things look like they always existed together on film, right? Above that, we have our sound keys, and above that, we have another levels, which is our fade out. So if we go all the way to the end, this levels is controlling our fade out. And that's it. That is our compositing in After Effects. And you render this out, you get the final result, and when we celebrate. So that's all of it. I think we did it all. Wow, cool. Well, that was fun. I opened up Cinema this morning to screw around with some sound, and this is what came out of it. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit about the sound effector and about how to use it, how to move clones using it. Now, in this case, we really only messed with the scale. You could do so much more. You could drive a lot of those, anything in that parameter bin in the sound effector, you can drive using sound. So go in there and really experiment with different shapes and sizes and colors. You can play around and you can animate all this stuff. So if you guys make something cool using the sound effector, drop it in the comments and have fun with it and show me when you're finished. Anyway, have them take these stupid headphones off. Dang it, fix my hair. I'll see you guys in another tutorial. Bye, everybody.